In this episode of another Zelda podcast, Kate and David listen to some of the music from Skyward Sword.
Hello and welcome to another episode of another Zelda podcast. This is Kate here as always with my co-host, partner in Zelda crime, I guess,
Wow.
Dave. How are you, Dave?
Hi, Kate. I'm well.
Good.
Zelda crime? We're doing crimes?
I don't know.
I see.
See, this
She's
is
like-
what happens when you tell me to wing it.
I said, let's just get this episode going and wing it. I
Just
said
wing
before we
it.
pushed record, and Kate said, oh, great, the thing I love to do the most.
Improv. So we had
Zelda crime.
we had some special intro music on this episode, which I'm sure you all heard, which is appropriate enough for the theme of this episode, which is music related. So Dave, can you tell us about that version?
Yeah, well, that was a song by Brian Kuros, and actually our listeners are kind of familiar with him because I played his song in the break of our first episode of Season 2 when I invited people to submit songs, and we've actually gotten a few. I've reached out to a few people have reached out to us, so the next couple episodes we already have guest intros, and I'm so excited about that.
Super cool.
But Brian here, he has a band that is called, I think you'll enjoy this, The Silent Protagonist. And
Nice.
They do basically kind of like California beach rock style covers of Zelda songs.
That's awesome.
And so, of course, I'm to stay at least somewhat accurate for our intro. I'm asking everybody, can it be, do you have a version of Saria song or Lost Woods theme? It kind of goes by two names because it's that melody comes up in both versions of those songs.
Mm-hmm.
And but they also have a recording of, I think, Dragon Roost Island and stuff like that.
Ooh, I love that song.
Yeah, I do too. Maybe I'll play that. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'll play that one just for the fun of it during our break. A snippet of it.
Cool.
I think regularly what I'll do is, because our intro is so quick, I think regularly what I'll do is I'll put a slightly longer version of the submitted guest intro during our breaks. Does that sound good? I'm glad we're having this meeting right here on the air.
Sounds great. Maybe we should get to the episode though, Dave.
Whoa, shifty eyes. Shifty eyes.
So yeah, that was, like I said, very appropriate to have a unique intro tune for this particular episode, which is all about the music of Skyward Sword.
Did I mention that we'll have links and stuff in our show notes for Brian? Because we will.
We will have links in our show notes for Brian.
To Brian specifically. We'll have his address. We'll have his social security number. It's going to be
Yeah,
fantastic.
all his information. Feel free to use that however you see fit.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, Kate, I have some listener feedback too, if I may.
Yeah, before we get to our topic at hand, let's hear it.
So we had a little bit of feedback from our Silliest Items episode that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
We had a bunch of tweets, and we'll probably pull those up on another episode, a later episode. But I just want to talk about some YouTube comments that popped up quickly. Our YouTube is kind of hockey sticking right now. It's very interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, this is an audio podcast. We, 90% of our listener base, if not 95% of our listener base, listens to the audio MP3s through Google Play or iTunes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for season 2, I don't know what's happened. We've had like a 90% increase in our YouTube listeners, which is wonderful.
I think it's all thanks to your amazing YouTube video and graphics skills.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
I think so.
That's what it is for sure.
Pleasing to watch.
Though I do have fun finding those backgrounds in Breath of the Wild to have at least something to look at. Because what it is my idea is, if I may real quick as well, if you're listening to a podcast on YouTube and you have it up on your screen, maybe I'm old school, but like as a courtesy, you kind of don't want the graphics to be static because you don't want to burn into someone's television. I doubt someone is going to be listening to that many hours of another Zelda podcast now that as I say this out loud.
I don't know. We're pretty amazing.
The concept is you should at least be polite and have the image move a little bit or change a little bit so that people's monitors and televisions and screens don't just sit there and burn in.
Interesting.
That's why I do it. But
also, I don't want people to record me. I don't want you to video record us. So
yeah, that'll be more of a season 4 thing, I think, Kate. I can probably talk you into it by then.
Ooh. I don't know.
Anyways, it's a lot of fun to find those backgrounds. But over on YouTube for our top 10 silliest items, Alyssa Cat said here, she said, the bomb mask in Majora's Mask. It's literally a live bomb that explodes on your face and causes you damage. LOL, pretty silly to me. She's absolutely right. Like I said, I joked in our silliest episode, I think you could do a whole list just out of Majora's Mask.
Sure, and I haven't played enough of that to really have a good list of silly items from that game, but it sounds like there are plenty. I know we talked about that one that you brought up, that mask with the head on it.
Yes, we had some listener feedback about that as well. But again, like I said, I'll bring that up in a different episode. We'll come back. We'll loop back around to it. I have one more YouTube here. The Troop Leader's Mask from Majora's Mask. This iValentine3 commented and said, "Is my favorite silliest item. The quest to get it is so fun, but the mask itself does nothing but cry. Literally, the mask drops tears in the N64, and the only purpose is to have all the masks. It actually isn't necessary for any kind of side quest or anything. It's just a mask that cries."
Wow.
Majora's Mask is a fascinating game. I can't wait for us to review it, probably in season 3, Kate, because I'm coming around big time on Majora's Mask. I know the mechanics sometimes people get a little frustrated by, but I think the art that is expressed, and like we call this silly, there's a mask that you wear and it just cries. That's technically art in that it doesn't necessarily have a purpose or a reason or a need.
Sure.
It's expression. It's literally expression, but it's also figuratively just choosing to express by having certain things in there. And I think there's a tremendous amount of expression that actually happens in Majora's Mask. I would argue it might be one of the most expressive or emotional Zelda games that exist.
Interesting.
There's ideas out there about that. There's metaphors for depression in it and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And stages of grief. And I think we're going to have a future episode about that. Very cool, very exciting. So anyway, that's a couple silly items, and also just real quick, I have some iTunes reviews here that I would love to read if I may.
Do it.
Cool. So Core Slight _ over on iTunes left us a lovely little review back in January 31st, but we have the time to talk about it now. We won't always be able to read every single iTunes review, but it is nice, and it's such a sweet thing. And I really enjoy hearing this from people, as I've said in past episodes.
Yeah.
So Core Slight here said, "I have been searching and searching for a Zelda podcast that breaks down the world of Hyrule for us newbies, and I have not been disappointed with Kate's and David's take on all things Zelda. I've enjoyed the first season and it has really sparked my interest to find all the games and play them all. Keep up the good work, and I can't wait to hear the next season. Okay, bye," with a smiley face.
Catchphrase.
I love it. BYEEEE, all caps here.
Nice.
My favorite thing that's happening with these iTunes reviews, and a lot of the feedback we're getting, but mostly it's appearing in the iTunes reviews, is that listeners are saying the show's making me want to go play some of the Zeldas I didn't play. That kind of thing. Or like, I want to play all the Zeldas now. We're getting that from time to time, and I think that is a super special treat. I think that's awesome.
I mean, to be honest, our show has made me want to play all the Zelda games. So
yes, yeah.
It's appropriate because I think I've mentioned this before, but I don't think I would have played some of these games had it not been for the show. And, conveniently enough, you lending me literally some of the games. Literally lending some,
but it's great, and you've actually helped me have a new perspective on some of the Zelda games as well. I've really appreciated it. Aww. So finally, one more, just kind of a fun one here. But a review by Link in Chicago, over back in the mid-February, left a review here that I want to read just because it's fun and I remember this happening. It's very flatteringly titled "Brush with Fame." "I bumped into David in Target while I was buying Breath of the Wild, and he recommended his podcast on it." Because I just walk around the world and tell people to listen to my Zelda podcast. No.
You were wearing your podcast shirt?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Ask me about my podcast.
No, not at all. But I had struck up a conversation with this gentleman and a couple of people actually in my time. If people start talking about Zelda, you kind of like, well, actually, I have a Zelda podcast, and okay, fine. Anyway,
I've done it too. It's okay.
So, what a fortuitous brush with fame. I'm loving the game, but also loving the podcast. It makes me want to go back and replay all the previous Zelda games. In one of the episodes, they remark that your favorite Zelda game is always your first Zelda game. It's true in my case. The original, The Legend of Zelda, is still the best ever. But gosh, Breath of the Wild is close. Love the podcast. I'm so glad there's a season 2. Well, thank you so much, Link in Chicago.
Thanks. That's nice.
Indeed. I usually just walk down the street with like a big bell. I just ring a bell and be like, "Get you another Zelda podcast here.
Uh-huh.
Click here to subscribe."
Yeah, you're freaking out my neighbors. They're like, "Who is this guy?"
He's out there again. Just close
the curtains. Do you know him?
Just close the curtains.
I don't know him.
So that's super sweet. And anyway, Kate, let's start talking about some Skyward music.
What an exciting game to discuss the music too.
Yes.
Because I know both of us, well, you're a little less excited about the game in general than I am. I think I like it a little more than you do. But I think we can both agree, hope we can both agree, that the music is pretty amazing for the most part.
I want to love Skyward Sword. That's the best way I can put it.
Fair. I do have some differing opinions about what is good and what is bad about the music of this game.
Interesting.
I feel like some themes, some songs are much stronger than others, or some areas are stronger than others. I don't think it's flawless by any means. But so to give like a little background before we go into different tracks to kind of listen to and check out. So thanks to the Wikipedia pages that I looked up for this. This is where this information is coming from to cite my source.
I love it. Cite my source, which is citing the other sources. But anyway.
Exactly. So there were 5 composers for this game, which is maybe why it's kind of discombobulated between place to place. And I don't know how to say any of these names, but...
Well, I know, if I may interject for a second, I do understand that this was the first Zelda game that Koji Kondo didn't write much on. I think he wrote 1 or 2 themes or something.
He composed 1 piece.
Okay.
Which we'll listen to first because, I mean, it's like the first thing that you hear.
Yeah.
So it's the prologue video, the kind of story describing the origins of Demise and Hylia and everything like that. So that's the only thing that he wrote. Otherwise, he supervised. So he still kind of had his hands indirectly in things, but not directly. So there were 5 total composers. You can look up their names online because I don't want to butcher their
fair
Japanese
enough
names. One person in particular, though, the last name is Fujii. I don't know how to say that. Fuji.
Yeah, I think Fuji.
However,
Fujii.
Yeah. So she actually composed the environments, so including Skyloft. That theme I really, really like. She worked on dungeons and boss battles. So I think going through the music, I was realizing I really liked her stuff the most.
Cool.
And then there were some other areas that I kind of wasn't super excited about. What else do I have here? So the first orchestral music, obviously, that's a huge deal here. So haven't heard actual instruments on a Zelda game just yet, or quite in this capacity.
You're absolutely right. Skyward Sword came out as part of the 25th anniversary of Zelda. It was 25 years, and so they wanted to make a big deal out of that. Every Zelda before this, the music had been written, but then it was programmed in, and it was music that was done through a synthesizer. This was the first one where they had a big orchestra get together and they recorded the tracks. And also that, of course, kind of famously coincided with the tour of the Symphony Zelda thing that went around the country, and then they did it a couple more times, which was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a fondness for orchestral music. I played viola and piano as a kid, and my parents brought me up in classical music and stuff like that. So hearing this kind of thing for a video game is super exciting to me. I love it. I love any video game really that has like big epic orchestral music. So this was super cool to listen to. And I guess Miyamoto, they didn't even know that he was going to really require the orchestra until I think kind of late in the process from what I read, and they thought he was joking at first. Like he's like, no, we need this orchestra. And they're like, oh, you're serious.
Oh my.
Yeah. So he kind of like brought it out of nowhere, or at least insisted on it out of nowhere.
Well, maybe.
So all of a sudden there's this big, huge requirement because, I mean, one can only imagine how much time it took to, I mean, you write it and arrange it, but then you have to record, you find the musicians and record it and do all that stuff.
Yes, exactly. And the turnaround is enormous in that if you do record, when they record each instrument, sometimes they can separate them if they need to change something up for a game, but like when you're recording orchestration for a movie, most of the time the final orchestration recording happens after the edit. Occasionally it doesn't. Occasionally they have to kind of, cut and paste a few things here and there. But for the most part, the edit of the film will be done when the actual soundtrack is recorded. There are some themes that are recorded ahead of time that the directors can cue off of. But that, if John Williams is writing something for Star Wars, or whoever's writing, Giacchino's writing something for Star Trek, they are writing to the second. how long that track is because of how long the scene is or when some dialogue is happening and stuff like that. With a game, I have to imagine that, I mean, first of all, there's hundreds of hours, well, not hundreds, but there's hours and hours and hours of more content than there is in a film.
Right.
And you have to have music be there for all of that. And that kind of specificity of when does a song start and stop, when is a crescendo appropriate, that can be really uber controlled in a film, but that has to be dynamic in a video game. Now, in recent years, certain video games, including Breath of the Wild, in my opinion, have found ways to use code to find those crescendos. But when you are just flat out recording 7 minutes of a song, that's what you get.
Yeah.
And so when it gets used in the game, that is a tremendous choice and decision. And also to your point about how I didn't know that Miyamoto offered this. I actually don't know much about Skyward Sword's music, except that I remember it being very beautiful when I played the game. In fact, I'm very excited today because you have the notes and I can't even necessarily recall some of the main themes.
Ooh.
So I can't wait to listen. But I'm going to keep talking. I'm so sorry. No, all I was going to say is maybe that is why there were 5 people that worked on the music. Because if it was ordered late, they were like, whoa, oh no, get everyone on it. So they brought a lot of people in. Okay, you do the atmosphere, you do the themes, you do the whatever. And maybe that's what happened.
And maybe that speaks to why it's a little disjointed. Also, what you were saying about the orchestration and how it takes so much more effort and specificity. I think that's maybe why I find the characters' themes, which is a unique kind of newer thing, is to have themes for specific characters and moments. The themes, which you'd probably have like a cutscene for, or I think those are like more interesting than the kind of I'm going to run around the volcano for a while,
right?
Because in those areas there's less like specific melody. It's just kind of more beep boop bop every once in a while.
Well,
and I like the characters' themes more for that. I think because it is more cinematic and it lends itself better to the orchestra sound. I think
I agree.
Whereas just a general area that doesn't really have a true melody to it, the synthesized version of that wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing or an uninteresting thing.
When we did our Ocarina of Time music episode, we couldn't help but observe that many of the atmospheric songs sometimes didn't even have melodies in them. They were almost sound effects from time to time.
Right.
And so, anyway.
The other thing that's new about this one is that there are like people singing. There's actual voices, not like creepy computer voices, but actual human ones.
Yeah, I don't think there's any English spoken or anything, but it's vocal, right?
Yeah, it's like a choir in the background, kind of going, woo, 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 woo. There, you'll hear that in the boss battle stuff where they're like kind of shrieking in the background. But it does make a cool effect, to be sure. So if you want to kind of get into some tracks, I have a few picked out.
Oh my gosh, she just flipped pages of notes.
Okay, well, here's the thing. This soundtrack, if you find it on YouTube, is a hair over 6 hours long.
That kind of makes sense.
It is crazy. So I hope you're ready to settle in and listen
6 hour episode.
6 hours. Now we're just going to listen to some. And because not a ton of these have like real melodies, we don't have to listen to a lot of the song to kind of get a general idea.
Yeah, I'm just going to let you drive. You push play and pause or whatever whenever you think it's most appropriate. I'm kind of on the ride today and I can't wait.
Cool. I picked out mostly the ones I like the most, but then a couple just
they area. Come at night, mostly.
Huh?
They mostly come at night, mostly.
Stop making fun of me.
I'm not. I just can't hear the word mostly without thinking about aliens.
Oh, okay. Well, mostly these are ones that I really enjoy, but then there are also a couple
so sorry.
that I wanted to pick out just because they're areas that, you see in every game. It's the forest, it's the volcano. I feel like we have to listen to this game's version of those.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to start with the one that Koji Kondo worked on, which is the legend going into the ballad, and I think it starts off
wonderful.
Pretty
here it is.
Quietly.
Timpani, except a rolling timpani.
Oh yeah, it's pretty epic immediately. So this is.
Oh yes, I remember
again,
this.
During the video, that's kind of.
The video, like the cutscene.
The cutscene, the prologue. It's just insane.
Interesting.
I think it's a great way to set the tone of the game.
There are threads of when you first see Ganon and Ocarina here.
And there are threads of Ganon and Girahim stuff, which we'll listen to later as well.
And I know it's pretty early in this song, in this episode, but right off the cuff here, I'm noticing, how in previous episodes we've spoken to, does the music sound kind of Eastern or Western, or does it sound like Old English? Mm-hmm. This is definitely in that kind of medieval framing still.
That trumpet at the beginning, like you just imagine someone on a horse. Doing that before they ride into battle.
Absolutely.
And the other songs during this game kind of go around. Like there is Eastern stuff. There is more medieval sounding stuff. There's like Renaissance.
Interesting.
Kind of Italian sounding music.
Well, I guess it makes sense that Koji would write this one then, or compose this one.
I think it's fitting.
It's fitting, and it's certainly of his style.
All right, let me quick fast forward to the Ballad of the Goddess, because this is one that we have to talk about. Whoa. Considering...
Is this it?
Yes.
This is a ballad?
This is the Ballad of the Goddess, which is, I think, again, in the beginning of the game, but this is a theme that comes up over and over and over.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
My first thought while listening to it this time was, oh, Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know why.
It's very Pirates of the Caribbean. There it is. There we go. Now we're kind of getting off the Pirates thing.
I'd kind of like to know maybe how big the orchestra was that played this, because I remember hearing a story about the movie WALL-E, and how the orchestra that did the score for that was like gigantic,
really?
Like 3 times as big as normal, because they wanted it to sound like super full and super loud. And so I'm just wondering, because these themes are so epic and so grand, like I wonder what the size of this orchestra was when
I think I saw some pictures, and it by all rights looked like a full-size orchestra for normal like film recording.
Okay.
Sometimes they can pull a couple violins out, or a couple flutes out. They only need 5 flutes instead of
17.
25. Yeah. But I remember it looking pretty typical for like a film style recording.
Gotcha. So the reason that we had to... Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Yeah. The reason that we had to listen to Ballad of the Goddess is because, and I'm sure you know this already, and many folks do, that is Zelda's Lullaby backwards. And so...
I'm so embarrassed. I did not know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. So I have pulled up a version of that main theme reversed on YouTube.
Yes, please.
So we're going to play that one next.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
It's going to be pretty soon here.
Well, it was already there a little bit.
A little bit. And it sounds perfectly normal backwards, too, by the way.
Yeah, it really does, except for like the reverse waveform stuff.
They took out the sound effects on this version.
Okay.
It sounds like so.
It's in a different key, but it's that. It's it. That's cool.
Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing.
And it's not even like just the melody backwards. It's the rhythm of it backwards, too.
You're right. You're right.
Like, they're not just playing the notes.
That's cool.
It's very cool sounding. So I listened to almost that full thing, it's like 15-minute long backwards version of it, but it was really cool because I had heard of that before, but I hadn't really listened to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm just assuming that maybe my brain can't work correctly, and like I can't hear it in my brain when listening to the Skyward Sword version. I can't like reverse it and really think about it and picture it. And so I was like, oh, okay, so it's probably just the notes that are backwards.
Right.
Not the actual
the timing, like the melody, you could say the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. And there are YouTube comments on that just like, what a genius to write that where it sounds really cool backwards.
Yeah, and it sounded perfectly fine forwards.
Yeah, exactly. And so it also fits in with the playing of the game because, Zelda's Lullaby puts her to sleep, and in Skyward Sword, it wakes her up from her sleep when you play it backwards.
I'm into it. Wow.
So
I'm into it.
Genius. I can't get over it.
At first, when you were first telling me this, I was surprised and excited, but I was kind of like, ooh, it feels like it's a little on the nose, but this is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to move into Knights Academy. which is one of my favorite
Well, it's Hogwarts.
ones. Pretty much.
It doesn't actually, well. This is nice.
This is very reminiscent of, I think, Ocarina
Yes.
music, where you're just kind of like, I'm walking around a nice village, or like Ordon Village from Twilight Princess. Very similar.
Ordon was a little bit more mellow, but yes, I agree.
Yeah.
This one's interesting because it has that plucky feel of Ocarina, but it does not have an outdoor woodsy feel. There were a few more woodwinds in the Ocarina one. This keeps us, we're indoors, we're at the school, things are happening.
It's definitely an exploratory.
So maybe it's a little heavier on the strings than the winds, I'm not sure.
Yeah. This is one that I got sheet music for, downloaded sheet music for.
Ooh, cool.
And just to turn this melody into piano, basically. Like there's a piano version of this.
So this background layer of this boom, 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 that's like classic Zelda opening area. But we're really getting some variety with these flutes and these piccolos and whatever they are.
It's just a cheerful song. I always like these songs in the Zelda games because it's like before the world just goes to heck and you have to start going crazy and, battling evil. You just kind of listen to this and you're like, I'm going to walk around and go into this room and then that room and da-da-da-da-da. Like,
and what's interesting here too is obviously there's this, so marimbas, things like marimbas and harpsichords are kind of not easy, but they're kind of easy to create synthetically when you're doing like when you're not doing actual audio samples, but you have to make electronic noises. Sometimes those styles of those waveforms, when back in the day when computers were making songs, music or notes or sounds that weren't authentically created, they were digitally created. Harpsichords are common and marimbas are common and stuff like that. And so you hear harpsichords pop up in video game music a lot for that reason. But here, this is a situation where they have the real instruments and they're still kind of honoring that feel. There was clearly a marimba in there, clearly a harpsichord going.
Oh, yeah.
It was cool.
It was nice.
I like
so
that a
this
lot.
is, we're going straight to Skyloft now. So again, this was Fuji. She composed this one, or just environments in general. And this is one of my favorites. This maybe has more of the woodsy tone to it, kind of, even though it's not in the woods. Obviously, it's on the island. But this one...
Well, our relaxed town, the classic relaxed town, which is a bit more like Ordon.
Now, does this sound more to you like European village or tropical island? It's like a mixture of both.
Well, I felt like it was evoking a little bit of Outset Island, from Wind Waker.
Yeah.
So let's think about this.
But I think it's the mandolin that makes me think of the European.
Yeah. And then some kind of little pan flute horn thingy here, or maybe it's that thing. It's a I don't remember what it's called. A koala.
It's a koala.
Not
it's
a koala, the animal.
Koala.
There's a thing. It's a keyboard that you blow into, and then you play the keyboard. No, this is obviously the French horn or something. But I like this idea of the island, as you say it, because they're on floating islands.
Yeah. I wrote, it sounds like a nice warm day.
And I think that would be reflected in Skyloft, for sure. It's always sunny and nice there. People are going about their business. People are generally pretty happy.
Yep. I would listen to this when sitting outside in the summer, maybe, when it ever actually gets warm, which probably will never happen here in Wisconsin.
Oh man, I have there's still snow on the ground here in Wisconsin, but it got up to 40 today, so it feels like summer.
So it's definitely Skyloft-esque right here, right now. Not really.
This is great.
I like this one.
Yeah, you get that, tambourines and stuff kind of always evoke a market, and there's a little bit of that.
So we'll get to the market too,
please.
Because that one, well, we'll see. So before
we'll see.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite experiences in Skyward Sword, is how the music dynamically changes in the market.
Oh, I don't know if I have that many versions of it,
okay.
So I think we'll just listen to one. But before we get there real quick, we're going to go just we don't even need to listen to this really, because it's exactly the same.
But it's orchestrated.
Yes.
It sounds almost identical, but there's a little bit of that real instrument sound. Interesting.
Same as Ocarina. Is it? And it's the same in Twilight too, right?
Yeah, this is like
and Wind Waker too.
Pretty repeating theme.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that's sticking out for me, boy, that melody sounds almost just like the digital one from Ocarina.
So there are a couple examples in this game where it does sound more synthesized.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's on purpose or they were just like, well, it's inside the house, whatever, we'll just do this one,
Like maybe they didn't orchestrate it. The closest thing I can pull out of this one is that cello in the background, or the bass that's in the background, I can't quite tell, has a little bit more like resonance to it. Ambience.
I just wanted to
I don't know.
quickly bring that up because it's like, oh, cute. I remember that one.
On point.
So we're going to go to our first theme, our first character theme.
I'm going to guess this is Groose.
It is Groose.
Groose is a Goron?
Oh, I didn't think of that before. It does sound Goron-y,
Gorons love the muted trumpets.
Yeah. Because it does evoke like a kind of clumsy, macho, swaggery goon that Groose is.
How do you feel about that idea where Groose is actually Gerudo bloodline? Like, because of the red hair, and his descendants could be Gerudo.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
He's not... I mean, I know he comes around in the game, but I really like the Gerudos, like, super intelligence, and they're just kind of cool, calm demeanor, and he doesn't have, like, any of that.
I hear you there.
So...
I hear you there.
I don't know where that would have come from.
But he has red hair, so they must be the same.
Nah.
I'm going to do it. I like your insight on that.
Yeah, I don't know. So I like his theme just because it's kind of like dopey sounding, like doo doo.
Yeah.
Doo, doo, doo.
Boy, this is like being in Goron City in
It
Breath
is
of the
though,
Wild.
and I did not pick up on that until you said that. So that's really interesting. I wonder why.
I think it's just that muted
common.
trumpet or whatever that thing is that we're hearing.
So we're gonna go
Some oboes
from his theme to Fifai's theme.
Fifai.
Fifai. However you want to
Interesting.
pronounce it.
There's that harpsichord again.
So this is obviously the...
Maybe it's not a harpsichord. Maybe it's something else. But it seems like it, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. This is the embodiment of the Master Sword.
Master, you're 90% likely to be in this moment right now.
Fifai!
I love it.
So this is probably, I think I've brought this up in a previous episode. This is maybe my favorite theme music out of any of the games at all.
So I can't help but notice that it started with that harpsichord and it was classic, but now it's getting more beautiful and more sway. I think is this where she starts skating around and stuff?
This is when you first meet her or hear about her. So I don't think she's skating just yet.
That's fine.
But it's very similar, at least. It's like mysterious, ancient sounding is what I wrote down. Like, it's kind of like you're listening to a story being told, or this is the music that would accompany an old story being told.
Back to the harpsichord. I like that flute.
Me too. I really, really like that melody. It's one of those melodies or riffs where you're like, I wish I would have written that, or like, oh, that's so cool that someone came up with that. That's so neat sounding.
And some chimes here.
Yeah, I wrote, I really like that stringed instrument. What is that?
This one here that we're hearing?
Just kind of like the various, strummings. I'm not quite sure.
It's not exactly a flute. This shouldn't be a game of guess the instrument, but it is nice to.
It often is.
But this is the first time in a Zelda game where we have instruments, so you can't help but kind of be moved by it a little bit.
I think I just like the chord progression in it too.
Yeah.
It speaks to me.
There it is. That little melody there, we've heard that one a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that one popped up in Breath of the Wild.
And now this theme comes up again later. And I think I actually like the later version of this one better, which is her farewell. So this is the very end of the game. And honestly, a lot of the music at the very end of the game, I haven't even heard because I've never beaten it.
In real life.
Mm-hmm. So this is obviously played with different instruments. This is
Piano.
her farewell.
That orchestra, it does sound a little synthesized, but it's okay.
We don't have to listen to the whole version. I just like
This is great.
that
There it
there
is.
are different.
Cling, cling,
I like there are different versions of people's themes that come up in slightly tweaked ways, and we'll get another example of this kind of thing.
Well, look and see. So it started melancholy, and they bring the flute back in because probably it's rising. She's having some dialogue with Link right now, no doubt. Let's see if this flute disappears. Are we gonna get the melody again right here? There it is.
It does have a finality to it, though.
There it is, back to the piano. I was hoping they would do that. Wonderful, wonderful.
It's really pretty.
Now we're internal again.
This is like something I wouldn't mind waking me up in the morning, like being my alarm clock.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past you.
I was like, I'd be like, oh, it's morning. Good morning, everyone. It's going to be a great day. Although I guess
it's also a good. There it is.
Dave likes this one.
That little melody. I love it.
I do as well. All right, so we're going to go from here to the bazaar, which is what we had kind of mentioned earlier.
Yes. I don't necessarily know if I love the song of the bazaar, but what they did was they recorded different instrumentations of the theme. There's 5 or 6 different versions of it. So as you travel to different mini shops inside the bazaar, those versions will fade in and out. So it kind of feels like certain instruments are cutting in and out.
Yeah. So the YouTube list that I'm looking at right now has 6 versions. So this is just bazaar, and then you have gear shop, potion shop, item check, scrap shop, and fortune teller.
Yep.
Different versions of this.
This is also one of the earlier times where this happened. Well, one of the first times this happened was actually technically in an Indiana Jones point-and-click adventure game. I think it was Search for Atlantis or something, where they had dynamic instrumentation. Mm-hmm. But the first time a lot of console video game players might think about this is the classic example of Mario in Super Mario 64 when he jumps into the water. The instrumentation changes. Mm-hmm. The drum track cuts out, and I think it gets a little bit more watery. And when you jump out of the water, the drum track comes back in. Or when you jump onto a Yoshi, a little comes in. But I don't think that happens in 64. That might be in Sunshine. But still, I love dynamic music because it speaks to that thing where when it's for a movie, you can orchestrate every little second and moment. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that for a video game. So what you have to do is you record many tracks and then dynamically bring those tracks in and out with code. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Based on what's happening to you. That's the closest you can get to having the music be appropriate for this situation. So anyway, are we going to listen to a couple other versions here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's go to the gear shop version. So I actually wrote that I'm not a super fan of this theme just because it sounds more synthesized. Yeah. It sounds, like there's not as much going on. It's lighter. And I understand that not everything could be like epic music in the background, but I don't know. To me, it just didn't resonate with me as much because it sounds more like a video game than
I agree.
Music.
I agree. This song's fine. I feel like thematically what it is, like in a film, you start with your wide shot and then you go to a medium close-up, then you go to a close-up back and forth of 2 people talking. So you start with seeing their whole bodies usually, and then you kind of eventually get close on their faces and go back and forth as a conversation happens. Mm-hmm. I feel like this thematically in this bazaar, we have our wide shot song where you walk into the tent, and as you go to have dialogue moments with the different characters, the music does need to be smaller and tighter.
Sure.
And maybe that's kind of what's going on here. This is the music for the close-up, so to speak.
Yeah. That's the gear shop version. Let's go to fortune teller because I'm assuming this one will be different.
Same tempo.
This is different for sure. I like this version. I don't think I remembered that it was different based on where you went in the bazaar. So I just listened to the main theme and I was like, meh. So it is, you have a point. It is very cool that it changes depending on where you go, because that's not the case in other games necessarily.
Breath of the Wild,
it's just a store. It's the store song.
Here's the store song. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because you're already kind of in half of a store. You're in the bazaar. I think the fortune teller was the first time I noticed, like the camera zoomed in or whatever, and we started dialogue, and I was like, whoa, this is really different. And then I went around to the other shops and was like, hey, it changes each time. This is great.
I was too busy going, what am I doing? What do I need to buy? I don't have any money. How do I do this?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go on to the woods, I think.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about Breath of the Wild, too. People joke about it not having much music. You can pause this. It's okay. I think Breath of the Wild masterfully does dynamic music. As you enter places or different things happen, sometimes a theme will start, enemies will come by or something. But the truth is, people joke about Breath of the Wild not having much music, but those little piano shrills and trills that happen, and when a violin or something comes in, is so masterfully done in Breath of the Wild. The timing, and when you find a new shrine, the music changes ever so slightly. You walk into a different area. Some of them are more obvious. You go to a stable, and obviously, the song kind of fades in of whatever it is, a Pona song or whatever.
That's my favorite. I'm like, yes, I know where I am.
Yeah, I hear you.
The stable music comes in, but yeah.
But there is a lot more dynamic. There's a lot more going on with Breath of the Wild music than I think people realize.
Oh yeah, it's effective, and I think it's cueing you and you don't even realize it.
I agree. I would argue it's so effective and so dynamic that's why people don't notice it. They start to just feel it. But anyway.
It's too subtle. Too subtle for me. All right, we are going to go to Farron Woods.
Yep. You always have to have those, not string plucks, but always those quick little staccatos whenever you're in a forest in Zelda.
So for this one, I wrote, not amazing, but this melody will get stuck in your head and you will sing it along with the game as you are running around the woods. I think it's not amazing to me because this is basically it from what I remember. It just says this over and over and over again.
This Piccolo theme here just going over and over?
I believe so. It's not, to me, it doesn't have a really strong picture in my mind that I can associate this with.
If I may, Kate, though, isn't this by the composer that you said you kind of enjoyed, though?
Probably.
Okay.
Because she did environments in general, so I would assume. Although, between when it says environments, dungeons, and boss battles, what else is there? Doesn't that mean she did basically everything?
Perhaps cinematic. So it sounds like she wrote a lot of this music that would be borderline dynamic. The stuff that puts down a layer of existence. She's probably not writing the music for the cutscenes.
Gotcha. Well, I think the boss battle music is fantastic once we get to those. I think those are great. This one is just kind of like, meh.
It exists, and I think that's all it needs to do.
All right, well, there's that.
Yeah.
There's that one. I think I am less impressed by it because I like the woods music from every other game a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
So this is just the least, or the one that I like the least, but it's definitely not bad.
Well, the woods in Skyward Sword was oddly didn't feel very woodsy to me. I remember there's some big tree trunks, but it was, because it had kind of those bright saturated colors and it was a lot more like a couple big trees. You didn't have that Twilight Princess feel of a little bit of, what's the word? When you feel enclosed. I'm sorry, it's escaping
claustrophobia?
Me. Claustrophobia, yeah, thank you. There was a big bright blue sky and stuff like that.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like a forest.
I remember a lot of
field
pinks.
or a meadow or something.
Yes.
More than that. All right, so we're going to
this evokes that, but anyway.
We're going to take a hard left turn here and play Lord Girahim's theme here.
Oh, Girahim.
Uh-huh.
So this is probably happening at the end of the first Forest Temple when he's talking to Link and about to do a battle with him, I think.
Uh-huh. So I think there's an organ because it has to evoke a Ganon-esque type thing. When you see Ganon, you hear that organ, and you see Lord Girahim, you hear that organ kind of melody. And it also has those weird chords in the background.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
very
vocal.
Similar.
And there's the timpanis there too, which was, I think... So this is what they've done. The background is much more leaning towards even some of the ocarina themes for Ganon. Mm-hmm. But these melodies on top,
I wrote, it adds a circus flair.
A little bit. Well, yeah, but Girahim has that weird kind of jester kind of appearance anyway.
Right, so it's like circusy Ganon to me.
Yeah, so the melodies are a little lighter and they're on top and they're peppered on top, which is oh wow, I don't want to read too much into it, but it's Ganon as the bass with a little bit of ornamentation, which is what Girahim is.
I think it's really cool.
I tell you what, Kate, I think we should go to break after this one and then come back around.
Okay, actually, let me do one more because it involves Girahim.
Ooh, I love it.
So I'm going to play the final Girahim, which is like his theme super maxed out. This is like the final battle.
This is fascinating. Because it's epic, but it's light.
Mm-hmm. And this is where you get a lot of the choir.
It's the choirs, but they're singing higher. Higher notes. There's maybe some cello in there for the low stuff, but it's not like boom, 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 boom.
Right. I think that's going to be later. That's more, if I remember correctly, like the Imprisoned. That gets like really grand and crazy, which we'll listen to that in the second half here. But
there was some circus flair just now.
It's like the nightmare circus you never want to go to.
I can see that. Yeah, I mean this positively. It's annoying. It's like fighting. You can imagine fighting him or doing whatever you're doing with Girahim, interfacing with him, and being like, "Oh my!" It's resilient and it just keeps coming. Instead of being foreboding or like empowering, it's like
it's annoying.
Yeah, it's a mosquito, not a
yes. Which he kind of is mosquito-like.
I agree.
He flies all over the place and pops in and pops out and rushes at you.
Interesting. Oh, I got some snare drum in there.
So I just wanted to kind of bring that up because the themes have a way of getting more and more and more complex. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you go through the game, which is really cool. Like the first time you hear everything, it's really simple. And then later and later on in the game, they get more and more crazy, especially the bosses, obviously. But
cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of cool. So let's go to break before we go through the rest of our little tunes here.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
Okay, bye.
Hello, I'm Max.
And I'm Jordan.
And I'm here to talk to you about the Top Hat Balloon Show.
It's a great show.
It's a sketch comedy show that comes out every week.
Hilarious things happen in it.
You can find us on YouTube or iTunes or on our website at tophatballoonshow.com.
We have a website.
Welcome back. We are back from our break, and we are ready to listen to more Skyward Sword music, or at least I am. Are you, Dave?
Oh, man, I'm actually kind of loving this episode.
Right?
I came in as a pretty much a blank slate, if I may, and this is a blast.
It's good stuff. I think between this one and Twilight Princess would be the ones that I listen to at work, just kind of in the background. I think Skyward Sword is a little more intense with good reason. I mean, you have the orchestra going on, but if you're listening to like the first half of the game, it's kind of more suitable for work, and then the last half will probably stress you out way too much. But
I just had a visual of you sitting at your desk and your computer at work and like working on a spreadsheet or something, but you have like an intense look in your eye and beads of sweat coming down your temples, and your coworkers are like, wow, she's really working hard. She's really focused on the quarterly report. And it's actually because you're like listening to like the Demise theme or something like that.
Again, I'm so stressed out. I can't handle this. Awesome. Well, we are going to go next to Elden Volcano.
Now we'll have to see if there's any. Yeah, a little bit. This is a different version of. Are we going to get the muted trumpet? Kind of there.
So there
it is.
There's like the volcano, and then there's the earth temple that kind of are similar. So this is the volcano itself. So there's lots of strings and percussion, which is, I think, similar to other volcano-y areas. It's always a very percussive environment.
To evoke machinery and...
I don't find this as effective, though, as other volcano...
I would say it's almost too melodic.
Music, yeah.
They could have they could have pulled back on the melody a little bit, in my opinion.
I wrote that the melody seemed disjointed and weird. So maybe it's too much weird melody. I don't know. I just don't know. Like these weird things that come in and they go out and they come in and they go out. I almost think the non-melody is more effective. The just atmospheric, creepy, foreboding sounds are more effective because, I mean, when you're in a volcano, you're not just, this sounds almost more like I'm just walking around this area and everything's fine. This isn't a volcano.
Yeah, this sounds like the town before the volcano or something,
Yeah, it doesn't have that sense of like danger or foreboding to it.
So interesting. You're absolutely right.
So what I wrote in my notes is that I like the Earth Temple music better.
That's what we're listening to right now?
This is the Earth Temple.
So our harpsichords and marimbas again. Ooh. What is that? A little wood block back there?
Mm-hmm. Now this has a lot of melody too, but I think it's a more fitting melody. It's more desert-like. I know that much. But I think this has a more like kind of mysterious sound where it's not necessarily pleasant.
I agree.
I had written down that I really like the desert-esque sounding songs on this soundtrack the most. I think they're the most effective, and we'll listen to a couple other ones.
Okay, I'm trying to suss out why. You can keep going if you want, but it might just be the fact that some of these instruments sound better as real instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that extra little layer instead of it being like noises.
Yeah.
I will say I like that the disjointed melody in the volcano that just happened. I get it. You have to break up your music because it can't just be a song because you're in a video game and different things are happening every couple seconds that you can't be in control of. I get it.
Right.
Unless you're doing dynamic music. But they're just using long drawn out notes. This might be as disjointed. Well, there's a pretty steady rhythm in the background though, keeping us moving along actually. But the melody is a bit broken up. They're just using long notes. So maybe it's a little glued together more.
I just find it more reminiscent of like, I mean, the volcano is supposed to be like this hot, oppressive area, and this music sounds more like that, I think, than the actual volcano music. Like, this makes me like feel like I'm wandering the desert, and I'm hot, I'm thirsty.
I remember going into the fire temple in Twilight Princess, and there was a lot of machinery and grate work and metal, grating and gears and stuff like that. And I almost feel like those who wrote the music for Elden Volcano and Skyward were inspired by the visual of Twilight Princess, perhaps more than the visual of Skyward Sword. I'm serious. That song felt like it would fit in an area where there was more activity going on. I mean, you're rolling that big old ball and stuff in the fight. No, I stand by what I say. Yeah, I feel like that's the Elden Volcano song we just listened to was more fitting of the representation in Twilight Princess.
So let me play this for you then, speaking of kind of machinery and things like that. So this is the Lanayru Desert.
Yep.
Not even to the mining facility just yet.
Oh, really?
But this is kind of when you first arrive, and it kind of... I don't know, it kind of...
Well, this is cool because they're keeping it...
I was going to say it kind of evokes the mining facility, but that's a little later in this track when there's more elements added to the song. Right now, you don't get it quite yet.
We're just getting that hit on the bar right here. Bing.
Right.
That's just giving... It's like in the background. It's literally in the background. It's figuratively in the background. The mining... We hear it in the distance, so to speak.
And I can play the mining facility music as well to hear the difference, but...
The rhythm, the fact that it's a rhythm is keeping us thinking like work is happening. It's a ticking clock.
I think even this would have been more suitable for a volcano.
I agree. This would have been cool in the volcano.
I like how the drums sound in this one.
That's
so
really
soft.
Yeah, but they're kind of the star here.
I think I'm just a fan of percussive songs more in general. I don't know. Seems to be my kind of taste. So let's skip real quick.
Sure.
To,
I could listen to this one
mining
for a
facility.
while.
I know. It's cool background music.
Oh, okay. Now this is implying the circuitry behind the robots.
This is really cool. Like, this is another thing where it's like, how do you write this? Like, what would this look like in sheet music? This weird...
A lot of notes. Well, it would look like 2 straight lines that slowly go up and down.
Shut up, David. This one you definitely have more little sound effects.
I must say, I know we're excited about it being real instruments, but there have been moments in each of these songs where some of the stuff doesn't feel like a real instrument. I don't want to be a hater on it, but...
Yeah, is that good or bad? Or neither?
Like this oboe or whatever it is that we're listening to right now, I don't even know if it's like a alto sax or whatever it is. Soprano.
Yeah, for this you wouldn't need an orchestra, because what would they be doing? Unless there's strings later, which...
Well, no, orchestra's all these instruments, for sure.
But I'm saying, would you need them for this song?
No, this would just be a recording session. I mean, I don't know. I think it might just be my ears. I'm going to decide to choose that all of these instruments are real instruments and that they didn't like go in later and track in a couple synthetics because they needed to patch some spots, you know?
Oh, here we go. There's some strings. Just for, can you guys come in and play or like 2 measures and then you can leave?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this xylophone thing here is just going back and forth, back and forth. So it's cool. What's cool about this is the rhythm, this continuing perpetual kink, 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 makes us feel like, okay, so when you want to do clockwork music or like a machine's happening, you get this kind of kunk, kunk, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When what is faster than machinery? Digital. Computation, computers, little robots, circuitry.
Mm-hmm.
And so by speeding it up to this kink, 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 it's making us feel like all the little ones and zeros or the magical little ones and zeros that are happening inside the robots are happening, right?
Yeah.
At least for me.
Those cute little robots.
Right. But at the same time, the notes that they're picking, how it... Like, well, it's happening right there, but they're not... I don't even know. I don't know enough about this to say if they're like going down into minors or not. My ear can't tell me right now. But it's not... It's mysterious chords that are being picked here.
Yeah. It's always notes that sound a little weird when they're mushed together.
So I would say
quite right.
Yes, I would say that the rhythm is like upbeat, but the melody here is not downbeat, but it's kind of mysterious, and I think that's a good
mix.
Juxtaposition. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go to something that will probably give everyone stress to listen to. It does for me. So this is one of the Silent Realms. This one in particular.
Man.
I already forgot which one I clicked on. So
I need to know for post to put these songs in.
They're all very similar. I believe this is... I think this is for Roars. For Roray.
They're really doubling down on those bells there.
Yeah, and they all do this. The melodies are very slightly different between the different Silent Realms, but it's...
Okay, I get where they're going.
So do you remember the Silent Realms?
Isn't that the part where you always have to pick up the little...
You have to pick up the teardrops.
Patches of
or whatever they are. And you have to sneak around, which this sounds ghost-like and sneaky and kind of nightmare-y to me. It's like...
this is really nice right here. I feel like if they would have eased off on the bell situation that's happening...
And I think that's part of why the song is anxiety invoking for me. Like, it's those
right there.
kind of annoy me a little bit.
That's like 3 different instruments together doing that.
And also these levels were just insane anxiety for me. I don't know that it's like that and Majora's Mask. The Silent Realms and Majora's Mask give me the most anxiety of the Zelda games.
Interesting.
Because
this is probably supposed to. This
I
song.
know.
It's doing its job.
I think so. And because you're supposed to sneak around, and if something sees you, it's like horrifying. They race after you. I just remember like physically sweating when playing these levels because I hated them so much.
Stealth stuff is a mixed bag. Sometimes it's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's really not.
This one was really not because one hit and you're dead, and I disagree with that. That theme in general, that idea in a video game of one hit you're dead, which is part of, I know, Breath of the Wild.
They do it once in a while. Oh yeah,
when the one hit and you're dead kind of thing.
That part was okay.
It was alright.
It was like, let's just get through this to the other stuff. I want to get to the new shrines and stuff.
Exactly. So let's go to another.
It won't stop.
It won't stop. Let's go to the Lanayru Sand Sea because again, I really like all the desert themes, and they're all a little different.
Is this where you get the little time traveling boat that you're moving around on?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, this is cool.
I like the little melody that pokes up every now and then.
I think that's a full-on bass drum back there, not a timpani. Oh, this is cool. So the winds are making us feel like it's water, feeling like we're sailing, feeling like we're out there. And the bass drum is like the drums they used to do on the old ships, where it's like, boom, keep going, boom, keep going.
I didn't even think about that. I just like the peaceful music, I guess. But the creepy peaceful music.
Yeah, it is creepy peaceful. But, you know, we've been saying that a lot of this song, a lot of these... Ooh, that was interesting. Wow, we're getting happy here.
Yeah, every once in a while
some peace all of a
goes
sudden.
into the major chords.
Yeah. So, you know, we've said this about a lot of the songs that we've listened to today. It's like, oh, it's a little unsettling on purpose. It's giving me a little bit of anxiety. Or it's a little creepy. I feel like... There we go. We're back onto that. A little bit of warm blanket there when that happens. But I feel like that is thematically appropriate for the very stuff that Miyamoto was trying to do in the original Legend of Zelda. He was quoted in saying, I wanted the player to have a little bit of anxiety of like, where do I go next? What do I do? And so people who don't know much about Zelda, when they do hear Zelda music, sometimes they will say like, oh, it's a little weird sounding, or the song's strange. Mm-hmm. I think it's all in line with the brand or whatever.
Yeah, again, I don't think some of these songs are quite as effective as other games. Mm-hmm. But I find that the desert, the sand, earth temple kind of collection is the most effective.
I'm liking them, yeah.
So we should probably play Zelda's Lullaby. Because it's the orchestral version of Zelda's Lullaby, which you had not heard before.
Not done with an ocarina.
Nope.
Is that just a clarinet or something?
It's cool because this is probably how it was written in the first place. It just couldn't be expressed this way.
It's true.
Or maybe it wasn't written exactly like this, but...
Envisioned.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're bouncing all over here. Different woodwinds. I like that. How are they going to bring it back? What are they going to do? Okay, kept it classic. That's fine.
I just wanted to play this a little bit to just kind of, bring back the old standard, but in a new way.
Yes.
Listen to that.
Yeah, that
just
feels
in case
good.
people haven't played this game. I don't know why you listen to this episode, but maybe you are. And it's cool just to listen to and hear it in this kind of format.
When I listened to the 25th anniversary orchestrated disc that happened. I know they've had it, like I said, a few other concerts, so there's many versions out there of different orchestrations. I get emotional listening to some of these tracks reinterpreted as full orchestrations. I liked that they led with the harp too, like they did in the Ocarina version.
Well, the harp is a part of this game, so it makes sense.
That's right.
It's very appropriate.
And why is it a part of the game? Because they needed you to waggle the Wiimote back and forth. But that's okay. Just like the pan flute.
Everyone, wiggle your Wiimote.
On Spirit Tracks. Hey, we got a weird controller. How can it feel like an instrument? But that's okay. I'm making fun, but I'm not actually making fun at all. I get it. Mm-hmm. What's next?
Next, we are going to go to... If I can find it. Okay, here we go. This is the final Imprisoned song, because I listened to the other Imprisoned ones, and they're fine. They're kind of tense, whatever. So this is Imprisoned Final.
So he's like full tail and feet and whatever in this one?
Yep. When I was listening to this, I wrote, I wish this was a slightly faster beats per minute so I could run to it. Because I think it would really pump me up when running.
I have some software where you can change keys and beats. I can switch it up for you.
I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna finish this race.
I like that. This is fine. I would say it's kind of classic.
It's definitely the biggest version of this theme to match the biggest version of the Imprisoned.
Right.
Which was not a part of the game I enjoyed playing at all whatsoever, but I like music.
Whenever you need the hero to do hero things, you just bring in those trumpets, and there it is.
Huh?
This is kind of interesting, though. Peril.
I just keep picturing running up and up and up and up and up and up that ramp.
The Imprisoned battles weren't bad. It was just that ramp.
That, and you had to do it, what, 3 times? 4 times? Something like that? 3 times?
Do you remember when in our Ocarina episode, or our Ganon episode, we were talking about how when you fight Ganon at the end of Ocarina, you get knocked down the pit and you have to climb up the little wall? And how that was almost worse than just dying and starting over? I feel like in Ocarina, that was just the right balance. It was like, okay, it's going to take 10 seconds of my time. It's a little annoying. I really don't want to fall down there again. But with the Imprisoned, you would fall down, so to speak, and be like, oh my goodness, this is 20 more seconds. I got to run in spirals just to get back up to this situation.
And if he gets to the top, you're dead.
Yeah, so it's a ticking clock.
Yes.
In that sense.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's why I also hate it. Makes sense.
I know they eventually give you those shortcuts with the parasail or the sail loft thingy or whatever it is, but...
Yeah. All right, last one that I have is the Final Demise.
Let's listen to this for a while. We're doing great on time here. Man, see? Yeah. And we know what he looks like. He's a big bad dude with an attitude. I want to play this.
Yeah, I've never gotten to this part. So I listened to this music recently and I was like, oh my god, this sounds like it's in a movie.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Williams earlier. I'm like, this sounds like it would be in like a crazy sci-fi battle.
I agree.
Lots of choir elements here, lots of vocals.
This is everything. All the stakes are at stake here, and that's why you go this route with this kind of music.
Ooh, that was a little Ganon theme. Did you hear
did.
that increasing, or that melody that goes up a little bit? It's so cool how they bring in elements of other stuff into this music.
I know for me, and I think for a lot of fans of Zelda, that's one of their favorite things about Zelda music is not just a flat-out callback. I mean, hearing Zelda's Lullaby again is great, but when you have these little themes or references fall into other melodies, that's a blast.
Like little Easter eggs, little audio Easter eggs.
And because the Zelda timeline's so screwy, it's fine. We subscribe to it. We have fun. We accept it to be true or whatever, even though it was a lot of retroactive stuff that happened to build that timeline. nevertheless, or even if you go with this concept that they're all just legends, woo-hoo.
So I just started playing the credit roll, basically a couple seconds to take us out. But
This is full on Indiana Jones.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, this is the staff roll at the end. I figured I'd display
It's
this
okay.
at the end here.
It's okay. I can't remember what I was saying, but that's okay. How I feel like the music is almost a better through line through the games because it doesn't have to exist in a certain time frame. It can exist as an emotion. It can exist as a theme. And that's almost more, increasingly so. I'm fine with the timeline. It's cool. But increasingly so, I've been wrapping my head around the idea that all of them are legends except for Breath of the Wild right now, as we've talked about. But if that's the case, that's fine. It makes every single story still important. And I like the themes crossing through them even more so than the musical themes.
So this is the part where it's the Ballad of the Goddess again, so Zelda's Lullaby backwards. Now, some people were talking about how that's kind of lazy. I disagree. I think it's genius.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I said it was a bit on the nose, like, oh, what should we do? Oh, let's flip it. But it was very well done.
But it works, and it sounds like a really cool melody. It has that kind of more, where Zelda's Lullaby is obviously more peaceful. It has like an epic sound to it when you play it backwards,
Yes.
which is very Skyward Sword, because I'm
Also,
flying through the air.
I just remembered you wanted to name your Ganon horse a Nope anyway, so you love flipping things backwards when they have to be the opposite. But this is very well done. Masterfully done, in fact.
Yes. So, again, to kind of summarize, I think the characters' themes are probably my favorite part. I think they're the most effective. Obviously, they come up over and over and over again, so maybe that's why I like them as well, because I've just listened to them so many times.
Yeah.
But and I like the Ballad of the Goddess. I think that is super effective. And then the forest, the volcano, those seem to me kind of more afterthoughts. I think they were really focused on like the Skyloft theme and the Bazaar theme, and then the forest and the volcano
agree.
kind of fell
Well,
to the side,
yeah,
maybe,
I
or it just
wonder.
weren't quite right to me. I mean, I'm a master composer, so I
But,
could
like-
do so much better.
No. I hear where you're going with that. But like, if this song were playing while you were in the Fair Woods, it would be too much. It wouldn't
It'd
be
be
appropriate.
too much, right? I never even watched the credits of Skyward Sword. I've never seen them. You gotta have the classical theme. Very much like the credits of some epic movie, you know. You're sitting there just like digesting what you've just spent either 2 hours doing while watching a movie, or however many hours, 50 hours playing a game. This reminds me that I need to go see
The orchestration
Yep.
thing. You actually went to it, I think.
I went to
didn't
it
you?
once.
I did
A
not.
few years ago, and
I want to.
missed it the last couple times I've been in Milwaukee, but I would like to do it again very much.
This rendition right here is almost note for note what's on the disc, what's on the soundtrack of the 25th anniversary one. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. It's gotta be fun to play. Walking your fingers up the strings like that.
Oh yeah.
Cellos and stuff.
One of my dream jobs in quotation marks would be to be in like a orchestra that plays scores to movies or video games,
Yes.
like either
Hey,
one.
that is
I
a
would
living.
love to do something like that,
That is a
so
legit-
much.
I'm sorry.
I just
That
need to
is-
get.
We're talking over each other. I'm talking over you. I apologize. You just need to get mine.
We're both so excited.
Yeah.
I just need to get way better at piano, and then I could do it.
I see.
Way
That's a career though.
way better.
Way back. I'll need 20
So
years
true.
to practice, and I'll
Pretty
be set.
much, yeah.
Aw. We're going back to Skyloft. Or all the way back to the school? Cool. Kate, I think we should wrap this up.
Alrighty.
This is great.
Well, we condensed 6 hours into just over one. But I know there's stuff that I kind of glossed over or missed. I know I didn't do like the Ancient Cistern. That music was kind of meh. There's a couple other areas where I was just like, I don't know if it's worth covering. But I mean, that's only my opinion, and that does not count for anything. So please, y'all should let us know if we didn't cover something, a song that you really like. Maybe I just didn't even, because not really spoiler, confession, I didn't listen to all 6 hours of this in preparation for this episode. I remembered a lot of this music and I was like, oh yeah, I remember liking that. But yeah, let us know if there's a song that you really enjoy just like listening to, zoning out to, studying to, working out to, who knows, whatever. So yeah.
I have, one of the things I do is I went into iTunes and found those little simplistic renditions of Breath of the Wild music or other Zelda music where it's like just a piano or just an ocarina or just a flute or something. And I've actually randomly peppered them into my normal kind of chill work playlist that I have.
Sure.
And so it'll be like some lo-fi little DJ thing. And then all of a sudden I get like bling, 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 bling. And then it goes back to lo-fi chill, whatever. And it's a treat and a pleasure for me. That's one of the ways I consume my Zelda music.
Yeah. Again, I listen to it at work often and just kind of writing my emails and pretending I was playing video games instead.
Cool. Well, Kate, if people want to find me on the internet, they can find me on Twitter and Instagram and on our Discord at Raptor Paint. And where can they find you?
Well, I am confusing, and I have 2 different names because I don't know why I did that.
You really got to work on that personal brand.
Sorry, I'm not good at things. So I am on Instagram at I Only Take Cat Pics. And then I'm also on the Discord, although you should probably like tag me directly so that I see things because there's a lot going on there. And I unfortunately don't have time to read just everything. So if you do want to holla at me, my name on there is CaterTotYay, which actually used to be my Instagram name. And that's kind of my general name. Like that's my Raptor Paint, if you will. But then I updated my Instagram and now I only take cat pics on there. So Discord is CaterTotYay and Instagram is I Only Take Cat Pics, and I am not on the Twitter.
Hey, that's all right. Our show is on the Twitter at Another Zelda Pod. We love it when people tweet us there. And you can also find us on Instagram at Another Zelda Podcast or our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com, where we have links to all of our episodes and links to our blogs that are now being written. We have a couple up at this point, which is really cool. Shane wrote one. Celeste wrote one. Lizzie wrote a blog for us. Super cool that people can go there to listen to more of our episodes, but also hang out and read some articles and also get links to our Discord and all the rest. It's really a little place for conversation, and that's awesome.
And Patreon, too.
Patreon is there as well. You're absolutely right. Boy, I'm so sedate right now because that was so nice listening to all that music.
It kind of zens you out,
so relaxed.
Doesn't it? I mean, after the crazy boss battle music, then you just kind of go back to the main theme or all the strings and flutes, and you're like, oh, okay, good night.
Yeah, that was really nice. I'm going to enjoy editing this episode when I have to put all the music into the spots that we just listened to. It'll be a pleasure. It might take an extra afternoon, but it'll be fine by me.
But for now, David's going to take a nap. Good night.
Yeah, right. And I think that's really it. Yeah, so thank you, everybody. Kate, we'll see you next week when I'll be hosting an episode, but we'll both be talking about our favorite Zoras.
Yes.
It was a little tricky for me. It was much harder than favorite Gorons.
Yes, they don't seem to be focused on as much character-wise as the Gorons.
It's so interesting. As I was doing my research on the Zoras, and I'll speak to this next episode, I found much more information about the history of their culture and evolution of their culture than I did about specific Zoras. So a little bit of that might slip in. I have some of that in my notes.
Cool. I look forward to discussing.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it didn't become like a History of Zoras episode and kept it to favorite Zoras. We also have a little bit of listener feedback there, too. People have been tweeting us what some of their favorites are. So I'll see you then.
All right. Okay. Bye.